So hello and welcome back to another video, but most importantly welcome back to Rosemere. Yes, look at that behind me. I am situated in the helipad swim. It's my first session back since the lake opened from spawning. However, I have got a couple of trips to catch up on and we shall take a little look back at that. I've got a few nice fish to show you, but you know, this is my first session back. I think this is my third session this year, but this is the first session of the new season, so to speak of. But after restrictions was eased after that lockdown and night fishing was allowed and travelling was allowed again, I come straight down here for a couple of trips. However, I have got to bring you up to speed, but that's enough of that. This session then, I finished work at 12 o'clock today, so by the time I got to the lake it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now given my track record on this lake, you know, a lot of bites that I've had have come in the evening, so I was really keen and eager to get the rods out. That's why I'm speaking to the camera now. So anyways, I've got the rods out, boilie fishing, a little bit of pellet, my usual take anywhere rigs. I'll talk to you about the spots, why I've chosen and things like that, but I will say on my way down here I didn't really have this area of the lake in my head. To be honest, I had a total different area in my head before I got here, but the fish have told me otherwise. I've seen quite a few fish out there, more so in front of the gap swim, but I've just felt like I'd have a better ambush from here with there not being so many fish in front of me at the moment. And the gap swim, you know, it's always an area of the lake that doesn't hold as much weed, and for me it's more of a passing point rather than a holding point, or certainly that's my opinions of that swim anyway. So I felt like I'd have a better ambush from here, and not only that, I knew I'd have to make a lot of disturbance getting my bait out there, getting the rigs out there. A lot's changed out there since I was last here. The vegetation is well and truly up now. The little creepy holes and things like that you could creep in and have a look, you know, they're all overgrown at the moment, but I have been up all the trees, and that's how I've managed to locate the carp. Yes, and the other thing that's changed is the boat has been in that closed period, the weed cutter boat, and it's cleared out a hell of a lot of weed out there. There's loads of spots now. Usually, you know, you're sort of limited to a few spots in each swim, but that's not the case at the moment. And the other good thing is it's put up quite a bit of colour to the water. This happened last year as well after the boat had been in, and it stayed coloured for quite a few months. But during that period, you know, you were seeing a lot of fish fizzing here, there and everywhere. You know, it just sort of like opens up them spots that they've not fed on before, and you do see a lot more activity. They do give themselves away a little bit more easier, or they certainly do from my perspective anyway. I remember this time last year when I arrived on here as a new member, it was like a kid in a sweet shop, seeing all the fish and the fizzing and the activity. It actually makes you think that there's a lot more fish in here than what there is. But you know, I think Harris is due out anytime soon. I really do. He usually comes out quite quickly after spawning, and that is the reason why I'm here at the moment. However, usually, you know, I've always wanted to catch Harris up in weight, you know, at that 60-pound mark, but after the capture of Marshalls on my last trip out, you know, I'm really not bothered now. I will take Harris whether he's down in weight, up in weight, whatever. I am just happy to catch them at the moment, and there's some really nice fish in here. You know, there's quite a few fish that I haven't been acquainted with yet, so yes, I'm really looking forward to this session. Anyway, I am waffling on. That's as much as I'm going to tell you for now, but we will have a sit down a bit later on after I've kept my eyes on the water for a bit, and I'll bring you up to speed and let you know exactly what I'm doing. So yes, I'm going to leave it there. Wish me luck and welcome back to Rosemere. Well, we're just gone 8 o'clock now, and it's been about an hour and a half since I last spoke to you, and I'm pleased to say that there's fish in the vicinity. Even after making all that disturbance, there's a few fish drifting in. In particular, I've seen a couple in close as well. And now usually when I fish this swim, the right hand rod, I always fish it in close, but I'm still yet to have a bite off that spot. I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit because I've gone out long on that rod after seeing the fish cruising around near that island. There's a good bit of weed out near that island, and it's fairly shallow over there, and that was where I was seeing them with the backs out the water. However, since then I've seen the odd fish fizzing between me and the spot that I'm fishing out to the right. I don't know if it's on another angler's bait that's been and gone, or the fact that usually where that fish was fizzing, it's usually solid with weed there, and they're just sort of making the most of, you know, that weed not being there, fresh feeding ground, so to speak of. But it is looking really promising. I've seen a fish over where the left hand rod is as well. It's my banker spot that always does me a bite. That, well, I say always, it's done me a bite every time I've been in this swim, let's put it that way. Yeah, it's a spot that, you know, I've got a lot of confidence in, and yet when I first set out fishing in this swim, it was the spot that I was least favoured to go, and it turns out it's been one of the most productive spots for me in this swim. But yeah, I'm fishing the little channel over near the island. Usually I fish that rod in close as well, and I fish the right hand rod in close. But the way that the weed's been cut back and things like that, I was seeing the fish come close to the island in a little channel, and it is a really little channel. What I did is I just had a couple of casts over there just to check what the bottom was like, and it is presentable over there. So I used the baiting pole on that rod and dropped it right in that channel. Just a handful of bait in the actual scoop, so to speak of. And then I spread bait with a catapult. I don't like fishing on a very tight patch of bait. I think in here they just associate it with danger. Certainly that's the way it's come across from my experience of the lake. It's kind of the reason why I moved away from the solid bag approach, you know. But that does come into its own as, you know, as we move into the winter and things like that. But certainly I don't feel confident fishing like that in here. It's always been over a spread of bait or with a spom. I mean, usually, you know, I'm going out there with a particle and the spom and the boilies, but it's all out boilie approach on this session, with a few pellets, but not many pellets. The pellets are there really to bring the roach into the area. The little 6mm pellets, you know, it's something I love doing, and there's a lot of rudd and roach in here. And for me, if you can bring them onto your spot, you know, it just, well, it makes me feel confident. How can a carp swim past that and not investigate if they're there feeding away? I mean, that's part of the reason why I started using the particle last year, just to, you know, generate a bit of activity out there. And not only that, just to make sure there wasn't clearing out what I was putting out there. But yes, it's a very good method on here, that. I mean, if anything, looking out over the right hand rod, I mean, you can see the weed just in the distance there. It's actually only 7.5 wraps out to where that weed is. But originally, when I first set up in this swim, there was nobody in that swim opposite to me. And I was thinking about putting one right in between the channel of that weed to sort of intercept him, but with that guy going over there, I didn't want to take the piss with a boundary or anything like that, so I've dropped short and fished this side of the weed bed. But what I have done is I've baited the heaviest on that rod for that reason, to try and draw him in. and I've also gone out there with a few balls of ground bait. As I mentioned on the last video, you know, I'm playing about with a liquid at the moment that seems to be doing rather well for me. I mean, the ground bait's not there for any other reason other than the vehicle to get the liquid in the zone. So yes, I'll touch on the tactics in a bit more detail, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an update just to say that it's looking pretty good for a bite. There's a few fish in the area, and that's all you need in here, you know. I've made my disturbance now, I'm sitting on the rods, feel really confident, you know. Obviously, you know, I've caught quite a few fish on the rigs and that what I'm using, but the difference being on this session, to the last time I videoed on here anyway, I was using particle and I was fishing snowmans, always incorporating yellow into the mix, and then not only that, tipping off with yellow on the snowman. But last time I was down, you know, I switched things up a bit. I was fishing a cultured hook baits and match the hatch, and that's what did me the bites. And I did have a snowman out as well, and I didn't pick anything up on that. So I've gone all out on the match the hatch on this session. Cultured hook baits on them all, bottom baits they are, not wafters or pop-ups. Yeah, so I'm laid on, so it was imperative, you know, that I make sure that I am fishing a clean spot. So I did have to break the leading rod out and have a couple of casts, but it didn't take long. It's good ground out there. So yes, all is to play for. It's usually around this time when that left hand rod starts to burst into action. So yeah, I'm sitting here now feeling rather positive. And I haven't gone super heavy, 5 kilos over 3 rods, so that's not a lot compared to what I usually put out there. I shall certainly be topping that up tomorrow, whether I have a bite or not. I mean, there's definitely fish moving across in front of the gap swim as well. He's got quite a few fish moving across over there. Oh, there was a fish there, look. That duck just spooked it. Just off the corner of the island, just about picked the ripple up there. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that there, it's coming across through the gap swim, and then it's following around that island, and it's going in between. The fish seem to be going in between that channel and heading toward the reeds to the left of me. And that's why I've positioned that rod there. It's not a spot I've fished before. Usually I don't go for that far over. But it just screams a bite, it really does. Like a little Carp motorway. Well anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. I tell you something, I'm absolutely starving now. Can't wait to get some tea on. But I do hope we get interrupted by a carp before the night draws in. That would be the icing on the cake. It really would. But usually you don't get anything on the first night. Well, I don't anyway. Usually it's the second night where it always comes good. But we shall see. The fish are in the vicinity. The bait is out there. The Scopex squid. I've put a little bit of the liquid into the zone with a few balls of ground bait. So yes, wish me luck, and I shall see you very soon. Well, good morning, and would you look at it out there now. It is absolutely lovely this morning. It is a little bit overcast. There is some cloud cover. It's intermittent at times, but it is rather warm, and I have seen quite a few fish in the vicinity this morning. Going into last night, you know, I was seeing them again, seeing them quite long and short, to be honest. Especially out between them weed beds, as I mentioned, where I seen them yesterday. I seen them again this morning out in that zone, just cruising with the backs out the water. Don't really look like they're interested in feeding, but you know, if they're there, you know, it's a positive. It only takes a matter of time before they do tip down and have a bit of a feed. But news around the lake is there hasn't been a fish out. It is actually fishing rather tricky, which I'm surprised about, you know, given the fact that they've not long spawned. I think it's been a couple of weeks since they last spawned. And you know, there's quite a bit of bait going in. There's plenty for them to, you know, to have a bit of a munch on, to get them old taste buds tickled. That's the way I see it anyway. And they are moving about, you know. I've seen plenty of fish out there. I feel really confident that we can scratch a bite out, but we'll just have to you know, sort of wait for the afternoon period. I think that's going to be my best time. It always tends to be the best time for me. So yes, I mean, this morning as well, I seen a fish short again, where I seen it when I spoke to you last night, you know. So I am thinking about moving that middle rod out of that little channel of weed there. I'm thinking about moving that close in. It's just really hard for me to ignore that. When you see a bit of fizzing and that, you know, and then it's come back and or a different fish or whatever, but you know, to see it there last night and then again this morning, you know, it's too much for me to ignore. I've just got to put a rod on it. So I am going to do that at some point today. I don't think a chance of a bite at the moment is on the cards. I'm going to sort of let it ride out a bit. I am going to sort of redo that banker rod. I'll redo that around about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will pop a little bit more bait over that, but I'm not going to go heavy because I don't know if anything's been in and fed on there. And what I am going to do is I'm going to use the spom to keep it a bit more accurate. So not put as much in, but keep it a bit more accurate. And then, you know, I'll feel confident on that rod going into the afternoon. But the close in rod, if there is a spot there where I've seen the fizz in, then it'll just be a few handfuls of boilies over the top and a couple of handfuls of pellet. I'm not going to touch the other rod. I may recast it if I need to, but at the moment I really don't feel like I need to recast it. I'm quite happy with that spot. I mean, I'm happy with that spot as well, but I do want to make a little bit of disturbance by putting a bit more bait in. But I went out really heavy on that rod, so I don't want to put any more bait out over there. So yes, that's the state of play. That's where we're up to. It is knocking on actually. Like I mentioned, I've been awake for, I think it was about 4:45 when the bumming goose went through my line, and it's getting on for around about 10 o'clock now. So yes, I'm going to sit back, have a bit of breakfast I think, and we shall have a little bit of an update a bit later on, and we shall have a proper catch up then. I'll let you know, bring you up to speed to where we actually are and what I've been doing. So yes, it's goodbye for now. Get in my net. Yeah. Tell you like a big kid when I catch a fish. Well, as you've just seen, a mega battle that was. Weeded me up God knows how many times, but a little bit of patience and persistence and it paid off. He's a bit of a funny looking one though. He's a bit of a banana shape, very recognisable. I've got a chap here with me at the moment and he's just said that he recognises it. I've not seen it before, but nonetheless I am a happy boy. And it's still all to play for. I actually got the rod sorted a little bit earlier because a coot had picked up the left hand rod. So I thought I'd just take the opportunity to get everything sorted nice and early. 10 minutes later, the rod was away. Would you have Adam and Eve it, eh? But there he is, look. He's a nice long fish. Look at the tail on him. He's got a right rudder. Up. Look at that. He's a Bobby Dazzler. Mwah. Oh, and there's the other side. That'll do for me. I'm not bothered what happens now. We've had a fish and that's all that matters. On to the next one. Well, good afternoon, and it's just gone 5 o'clock. A couple of hours have passed since putting that fish back, and to be honest, I hadn't really seen much until now, but I've just started to notice a couple of fish drifting in over the left hand rod, and it's, you know, it's true to form. It always tends to do me a bite, that left hand rod, so I'm sitting here now like a sprung coil, let me tell you, ready to pounce on that rod. It could happen. One of the fish that I've seen, he's done like a circle of the spot like 2 or 3 times, like just keeps going round in a circle. It's like he's casing the joint out and then he keeps popping his head out, which I've not really seen him do before. But yeah, it definitely looks like he's casing me out at the moment. So yes, it's all still to play for. Very, very hopeful of another bite. It certainly looks good for another bite. Few fish starting to drift in, and that's all you need really. It really is. Everything's done, you know, all the spots are sorted, all been topped up. You may have seen when I re-put that other rod back out that I slipped it over a bit. With that guy packing up this morning, yeah, I have pushed over to the boundary a bit, so I'm in between them weed beds, and that's where the bite come from, you know. I mean, 10 minutes after putting the bait out there and that, I wasn't really expecting that. But it was sort of around this time yesterday when I started to see him drift over that spot as well, so yes, fingers crossed. Anyway, whilst I'm here and we're having a little bit of a talk and a catch up, I'm going to kick it back to what I have done this year on here. I mean, I'm going to kick it back actually right back till December. That is when I did my last session of the year for last year down here, before we went into that lockdown where it was, you know, restrictions on driving and no night fishing. I did manage to squeeze one more trip in. Now, if you remember on the last video that I put out, things were starting to change, you know, we had the cold nights, the weed was dying back, the fish wasn't showing as much, there wasn't as much getting caught. I started to cut back on the bait, and I nicked one, and then I come back, you know, just before Christmas. I think it was about a week and a half or so before Christmas, something like that. I did a 2-night session, and I was actually in the helipad swim as well, fishing at the same spot again. But again, you know, cut back on the bait, didn't really see much and didn't have any indications. But it was a memorable trip because my mate Kenny was in the opposite swim over in the Last Resort, and he'd actually been coming, you know, and putting the time in himself, and he'd been on a bit of a blank, and he landed a lovely 30-pounder that trip. And I tell you what, he was absolutely elated. I was absolutely made up for him, and I think I've got a bit of footage for that, so if I can find it, I'll put that on now.
Boat battle, 34 pound this one, about 4 trips before I had this bugger. Well earned, I'll tell you. Paul round here helping me do it and doing a vid.
Top man, mate, top man. That's what I like to see.
Proper. Lovely fish, well worth the efforts. Lovely, thanks a lot, Paul.
You're welcome, mate.
Brilliant.
Well done. So yes, that was the fishing all wrapped up then, into lockdown, you know, and I didn't do any fishing at all whatsoever in the lockdown. There was nowhere local that really floated my boat, and not only that, we was homeschooling the kids as well, so, you know, didn't leave me much time. So of course, once them restrictions was lifted, this place was what was on my brain, and I got straight back down here, and I actually fished the point swim. It's a swim which I've not fished before. The water level was right up then, you know, even like in all the swims you was having to wear wellies and that, so it was like bivvying up way back. Yeah, it was interesting, let's put it that way. But anyway, I didn't intend on filming that trip because I had some filming to do on a product review of the Bushwhacker. I'm just watching a fish come straight across the front of the swim here. So yeah, I was playing about doing a bit of a review on the Bushwhacker, so you know, the filming took a bit of a back seat, but I have got a bit of footage from that trip, so take a look at this. So yeah, I didn't have any fish on that session, but I think that was more down to what I was doing. I definitely did something wrong on that trip, because I did have a few fish in front of me. And so the next trip down, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks after that trip, I'll come down, and then this time I fished the Midwest. And I come with the same approach, but I didn't go quite as heavy on the bait, sort of cut right back. I didn't use the bushwhacker on that session, you know, stuck to what I knew worked, that sort of thing. At this point I was still up with Shimano, and I was still on the LM94. I was still fishing the Snowmans, you know, tipped off with the pineapple and banana. And you know, prior to that, all my bites come to that, but I seemed to sort of hit of a brick wall at that point. I don't know if it was the time of year, or if it was the quantity that I was putting in, but for whatever reason, you know, that turned into a bit of a bad trip as well. I did see, you know, an odd bit of fizzing out in front of me, and yet I didn't even feel like I was even close to a bite. So yes, and then it was back home and back to the drawing board, and this is when things started to change for me. This is when I joined Nash and that. Now I had a couple of trips planned elsewhere, you know, Albury Lake and bits and bobs, but I did manage to get another session in on here before it closed for the spawning season. And I come down, and where did I go? I ended up in the Lunar Swim. And now this session is where you know, I come with a different approach. I come on an all-out boilie approach, and I did also have a little bit of pellet with me. But the main thing I'd like to highlight, you know, that was the changing point in my bait. This is when I come with the Scopex squid, and since I've switched over to the Scopex, well, I guess everybody always says this, you know, when they join another bait company or whatever, it's the best thing since sliced bread. But, you know, certainly from my own catch reports and things like that, I'll let you make your own assumptions, but all I can say is I've noticed a big difference since I've started using the Scopex. Anyway, on this session, you know, fished a couple of known spots which I know quite well, and then I had a little pokey hole rod as well, a little snide rod going off, and it was the snide rod that did me 2 bites on that session. And the first fish, you know, that I had on that trip, it was a recapture that fish, and it was actually the very first fish that I caught from the lake, from when I first joined. Well, I really feel like I've put the effort in for this one. A couple of blanks to get me to this point, but just take a look at this fish. I think it's a recapture, this fish. Absolute pearler. 27 pound 10 ounces just gone. Another one that falls to the Scopex squid. And he is absolutely beautiful, if I do say so myself. Oh, I am chuffed to bits. Hopefully this is the start of better things to come. Mwah. So I knew which one it was straight away. Proper scaly banger he is. It was nice to see him again. He was around about the same sort of weight. It's actually the only 20 pounder that I've caught from this water. Everything else has been 30 plus. But yeah, it was a memorable capture. And not only that, he put that little blanking streak to bed that I had. And I felt like it was on to the next one. So yeah, I rebaited that spot, put it back out there. I can't remember how long it was until it went off again, but it went off again, and this time, you know, proper nice fish. One which at first I thought it was a fish known as the big orange, because I just couldn't get over how orange it looked, but it turned out to be a fish called paw print, one of the sought after fish. You know, all the ones with names in here everybody wants to catch. So yeah, it was nice to tick another one off the list. Well, just check this banger out that I've got to show you. 37 pound 2 ounce. It's come to the cultured hook bait again, and boy am I chuffed to bits. All this time, you know, the frustrations I've endured, and then another one slips up in the same day off the same spot. We are losing the light at the moment, and I haven't got the lighting equipment out, so I do apologise for the low light. However, I just wanted to get this done, slip back and get that rod back out there. Let's have a look at the prize. Oh, and there we go, look. I think this is the fish called the big orange, but I'll have to check with Ben. but he does look very distinctive. Just look at the colour of him. What a banger. Hammer time. Yes. So chuffed. Oh, and there's the other side. Yeah. Chunky monkey. One happy angler. Yes. Oh, you have made my trip. He has made all that bad time come good. I tell you. Oh, when it's on, it's on. And when it's off, it's off. That's the way carp fishing is at times. But this is turning out to be a rather good session. Slipping back onto the next one. So I finished on a high, you know, and I went home thinking another 2 weeks I'll be back. But then the week after the fish started spawning, so the lake closed. And that just about brings you up to where we are today. Back down again. Now, as I mentioned, you know, I didn't have this area in my head before I got here. I sort of had the last resort area in my head, because I knew this time last year quite a few fish come from that area. However, when I got down, you know, the fish was telling me different, so this is why I ended up in here. And again, you know, I'm on that same approach as last time, all out boilie. I have got a bit of pellet with me. I do trickle a little bit in every now and then. The long rod I'm not bothering putting the pellet out, but the other ones where I can just catapult it out, I've put a little bit out. But the other thing which I'm playing about with at the moment, I've already mentioned it, is I'm playing about with a liquid at the moment. I can't mention what liquid it is because it's, you know, it's something I'm working towards, let's put it that way. I've still not totally made my mind up whether it is, you know, making the difference, but certainly last trip out was the first time I used it, and then I'm back out again this trip, and I've put it in again. I'm putting it in the ground bait, and it does seem to draw the fish in. I mean, when I put the bait in, the rud are absolutely bouncing off the spot. I mean, the rud are quite active at the moment anyway, but if I put some of that out there, there's literally thousands, and I mean thousands, absolutely bouncing off of the spot. So, you know, it's definitely doing something. It's definitely attracting fish into the area. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing about with it, and you know, once I've made my mind up and, you know, made an assumption whether it is that's making a difference, or whether it's just the fact that the Scopex squid has changed everything for me, I don't know, but certainly not hurting, and it certainly makes me feel more confident. At the moment, my confidence is just, you know, few like really good sessions, you know, back to back. And not only have I been fishing here, obviously I had the elite session, I've been to Albury Lake a couple of times, and you know, all of them have been quite successful sessions. I mean, the elites wasn't really a great session, I'll be totally honest. You know, we had a bad draw, we didn't have the fish in front of us, but I still winkled a bite out, you know, so I took a positive away from it. You know, that's all you can do. So yes, that just about brings you up to speed, and you know, I'll start documenting everything properly. I mean, that first session back, it was more, I was just so keen and eager to get here, but knowing that I had to do a bit of a review as well, I just didn't want to cram it all in. I actually wanted to enjoy the session, and I did enjoy the session. It was really good, although it left me scratching my head, it really did. But I was sort of thinking in the back of my mind that it was the particle, you know, and even now I'm still sort of thinking it was the particle. But prior to that, you know, all the bites that I was getting, it was always on, tipped off with yellow, tipped off with yellow. And I've gone back to basics, really. I've gone back to a match the hatch. And it's, you know, it's not a pop-up, it's not a wafter, it's just a bottom bait at the end of the day. So it is crucial that you make sure you find your spots, and finding spots on here can be very, very hard, believe me. Even a spot when it looks clear, you know, you cast it out there, you don't get the drop like you usually do. Most of the lake's shallow, you do struggle to feel the drop, and then, you know, you start to pull it, and then you like twang, 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 and that's because there's that many like different sprigs of weed up here, there and everywhere. Even though the spot looks clear, you've got a sprig here, a sprig there, and it makes it very, very hard to distinguish if you are actually on a clear spot. But you know, a little bit of time and a little bit, a few casts here and there, and you do start to pick up the information that you need. But the key is, you know, just to make sure you don't drop in on one of them sprigs when you put it out there. So yeah, it is all about wrapping it up to the blooming inch and the millimetre. But yeah, and if you don't get the cast right, you redo it. And if it don't go right, you redo it. And if it don't go right, you redo it. I will not, you know, settle until everything. I've just had a savage liner on the left-hander. Savage liner. So yeah, I don't care. I'll redo it 3-4 times if I have to. But once it's right, it's right. And you know, the way I fish this place, you know, I don't sneak around, I don't try and creep up on them or anything like that. I set my stalls out, I bait and wait, knowing that I've got everything right. You know, it's a small, intimate lake, this, and what you really want is a few people on, keep the fish moving around, and at some point you always got a chance, you know, there's always a chance of a few fish in front of you, and that is all you need. As long as you've got everything right and a couple of fish drift over, that's all I ask for. It really is. And it usually gives you a chance, this place. Well, you know, for me fishing like that, you know, there's others on here that are fishing it a lot better than what I am. There's one guy off the weekends called Mark, you know, he's quite a mobile angler and that, and I think he catches more fish than anybody on here, I really do. And you know, he's quite mobile, he sneaks up on the fish, and you know, he pulls them out, he really does. I think he's the only person that sort of took that approach on. I mean, I've sort of tried that approach a couple of times, you know. I did have Sharon's fish like that, you know, noticed them fizzing in the gap, sneaked up on them and put one in, but in general, you know, you find the fish fizzing or whatever, you try and sneak one in, they're gone, long gone. And that's what happened to me in the point swim that time. Yeah. I mean, I suppose, you know, I could drop down sizes of leads and things like that and spray a bit of bait in first, but to be honest, this is working for me, and it's my preferred way of fishing, I'll be honest. It's a good big fish method. I mean, when you look at the fish that I have had, you know, I've had one 20-pounder. Yes, I've caught that 20-pounder twice, but everything else has been over 30 pound, and you know, the proof's in the pudding, I believe. Yeah, and there is a few small fish in here. In particular, there's a few homegrowns as well. I mean, today there's been a little common coming right out the water 2 or 3 times, and usually you don't see anything show like that on here. So yeah, and yet other people do catch them fish, but I don't. I mean, the other thing as well, it's like I keep saying, my bites are in the afternoon time. I've not had many morning bites. I've had one bite in the night, but yet other people that are on here tend to get regular night bites, regular morning bites, and yet I don't. It's very, very peculiar, and I think it has a lot to do with, you know, the bait and things like that you're using, and then not only that, you know, I think it is an element of what sort of hook link materials and what mono and how you fish your rods and things like that. I really do. Because it doesn't seem to matter what area of the lake that them people drop into, they get regular night bites. And for me, it doesn't seem to matter what area of the lake I drop into, I get regular afternoon bites. It's very, very strange. But yes, I think I've waffled on enough now. I am actually sitting here on quite a bit of a high, to be fair, after seeing what's out in front of me. Had a savage liner on the left just then as well. If it doesn't happen this afternoon, I'll be a little bit deflated, I really will. But then again, you know, I can't grumble. We've had a fish. Any fish from here is a bonus. And all I ask is just to be consistent, get the odd bite here and there, and I'm happy. I really am. Yeah, it can be a tough cookie at times, this place, but then if you get it right, it can be, you know, like Mark off the weekends, you know, you get it right, you can have it away on here, you really can. But it all depends on your time and everything, doesn't it, as well. Anyway, I'm turning the camera off. I'm going to stop bloody waffling on a high. Wish me luck. Hopefully the next time I'm talking to this camera will be like this. Yee. Well, good morning, and that is the view I am faced with today. Flat calm, loads of willow fluff on the surface, but I'm just starting to notice the odd sign of fizzing. It looks very, very promising. Now, last night, let me tell you, after I spoke to the camera, I was watching fish cruising about on the surface, and two in particular, which was circling the right hand rod. Oh my god, and one of them had a right set of shoulders on it. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Harris. But all night I watched it, right up until darkness when they just sort of faded away. But it was right over the spot at one point. But they just wouldn't drop down. It was great. I was sat on the edge of my seat the whole time, which is part of the reason why I didn't turn the camera on. I was just watching them around, and a couple of times, you know, it sort of headed out a little bit, you know, where it's like a half show, just headed out. Small head, big shoulders. It definitely could have been Harris, definitely could have been. But I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't get a bite. It looked good for it, it really did, especially over the left hand rod. I think last time I spoke to you, there was a fish circling the spot. But the fish that was circling, you know, it looked like a small common, to be fair. It looked like one of the homegrowns. But there was another fish that was sitting behind my spot, right in the back of the weed bed, at the edge of the reeds. And I'm thinking that could drop down at any point and have a feed. But all last night, though, after I spoke to the camera, no signs of like fizzing to indicate that there was actually feeding, but there was all here, you know what I mean? I bet you I seen at least 5 or 6 different fish in total, and you know, at some point there was like, you know, in the vicinity of the bait. But yeah, it didn't materialise, but it was great sitting back watching them, especially watching shoulders. Oh my god, I was calling him Humpty Dumpty. I'm like, come on you fat Humpty Dumpty, get down there. And then when he was hovering over the spot, going backwards and forwards, I'm like, come on, drop down, drop down, drop down. Absolutely sitting on the edge of your seat stuff it was brilliant. But we've just gone 6:30 now. I've been up for about an hour. And I'm just starting to get the odd sign, well, starting to see the odd sign, not getting the odd sign, over the middle rod, which is the close-in rod. I've seen a couple of patches of fizz pop up here and there, and then it was directly over the spot at one point, and I'm thinking, come on, come on, come on. But yeah, there's definitely something feeding close in. It's not hard feeding, it's sort of like, you get a little bit of fizz, then it disappears for a bit, then it might get a little bit of fizz some, you know, few feet away, but it's very much like that at the minute, very sporadic. It's not like they're coming in and just mullering the bait, which they can do in here. Usually, you know, when you see that happening over your spot, it's only a matter of time, but it definitely feels like there's only like the odd one or two fish. But certainly, definitely visiting that middle rod. It could go off, it really could. Opposite me now in the gaps, Alan's just turned up. So I'll have to reel that other rod in and drop it in short, I think, for the remainder of the trip. I'll have to see where he puts his rod, I think. But for now, I've got high hopes on that inside it. I really have. 3 3/4 wraps out it is. Normally you can't fish there. Normally it's solid with weed. It's like fresh feeding ground. It might be why they keep visiting it. Only this time it's got plenty of boilies over it and my hook bait. So yeah, that pretty much brings us up to speed. Got a few hours left. I'm going to give it till about dinner time. And you just never know. Never know. Even though my morning bites on here is pretty much non-existent, I can count on the same hand how many morning bites I've had. Everything else afternoon. When it's like that though, when it comes to pack up date, you just wish that you could stay till tea time and then sod off home. But, you know, I'll get into trouble with the missus if I do that. So yeah, it'll be pack up about dinner time. But, fingers crossed for one more chance before we go. But if not, it's still been a great trip nonetheless. Yes, and I am pleased to be back. Very pleased. I shall have a little bit of an update before we go. And hopefully I get a bit of chance to get a bit of drone footage before I go home. That'd be nice. Didn't really get any chance yesterday because going into that afternoon period, I just didn't want to risk it, you know, having a drone up in the air and, you know, God, I can't even bear thinking about it, having a drone in the air and then the rod goes. No, thank you. Yes, anyway, waffling, I'm going to have another brew, sit back, watch that spot, and I shall give you a bit of an update very soon. Go in there. Well, as you just saw, another battle. This one coming a lot easier than the last one, let me tell you. And I was kind of sitting here thinking it wasn't going to happen, to be fair, because the fizzing sort of fizzled out. But it's the long rod that's just gone again. Luckily for me, I didn't have to move it because Alan dropped all his rods in close, so he was happy for me to leave it there. So yes, this one just under £30, £29 10 ounces just gone. Can't grumble at that. He's a lovely scaly one. Bit of a two-tone on one side as well. Not long left of the session now, so I'm not going to put that rod back out there. And there we go, look. Thank you very much. You have made me one happy boy. Lovely jubbly. And that's his two-tone side. Another distinctive looking fish. And another character for Rosemere. Yes, let's slip him back and see if that close-in rod goes off. I've got about a couple of hours left. So that is it then, the house is down, and I have overstayed my welcome, believe it or not. Not long after slipping that fish back, the heavens opened, so I waited for the rain to pass, and my excuse when I get home is I had to wait for the bivvy to dry out, didn't I? So yeah, I'll be in the bad books when I get home, but it's been another good session, really enjoyed it. Good to get back down here. Been an interesting session as well. The fish haven't been properly hard on it like there can be at times, but they certainly have been moving around and it's kept me on my toes. I like it when it's like that. All you need is just to see that little bit of something to keep that enthusiasm going, you know, keeps you going on to that next bite, or it certainly does for me anyway. It keeps that positivity flowing. So yes, I am going to wrap it up there. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also please hit that subscribe button, and I shall be seeing you on the next one. It's goodbye for now.